Is the education system actually set up to improve and promote human capital? Or is the education system set up to put individuals in a box? Today we are going to be talking education. But before we go ahead, thank you very much for joining this video. I pray that you are going to be edified. I pray you are going to be empowered in the name of Jesus. Amen. So before we go ahead, I'd like to ask you a question. What is education to you? Is education really necessary? When we say education, what's the first thing that comes to you? Is the first thing that comes to you knowledge, or is the first thing that comes to you school? I think that many times we do not really understand what education is all about. And because we don't understand what education is all about, we find ourselves in a confines of school. We see ourselves going to school. We see ourselves just going because every other person is going to school, and we feel like, oh, I'm going to school, I'm getting educated. Obviously, schooling is part of education because school is a place where people get educated, where people are impacted with knowledge. But I'm making this video, I think this is going to be a part one of a series, or rather, let's say an introduction to a series that I would like to take. Before I go ahead, I would like to make mention of this. For most of the times I went to school in Africa, I schooled in Africa, and the curriculum or the system of education, I was educated under the British system of education, so the Cambridge system of education, even though I went to school in Africa. And obviously, I think that in America, the system of education is quite different from that in the UK. But that which is in the UK is the same thing that I in my country in Africa, that's the same one that we were educated under. But I'd really like to ask this question to you who is watching this. What do you really think about education? Like, have you ever sat down and thought about it? What do you think about education? What do I do with the knowledge I am acquiring? I've come to realize that many times, especially in Africa, let me say it this way, we go to school, we get notes, the teacher says things to us, and we just get the information that we can get. Many times we don't even seek to really understand what it is about. We cram, and then preparing for an exam, to come and give the teacher what's on the exam, what they want to see on exam paper, and that is it. So we don't really know how to use the information that we are acquiring from school. You don't know how to maximize that information, and it's really a burden to me because I, for one, by the grace of God, I did well when I was in school, and now I had to start learning some things online. I had to take a few courses online. I had to do some things that were quite practical. And then I realized that it's much more than let me say it this way. I had to start doing some things online, doing some courses online, doing some work online. And then when I began to study again, I realized that it is different. The feeling was different. I wasn't studying now because I wanted to write an exams. I wasn't studying now because I wanted my teacher to give me a good mark on my test. I was studying now because I actually needed that information. I needed to know how to go about certain situations. I needed to know how to go about this thing, because if I don't have the knowledge, I will not be able to excel in what I want to do. And the difference was really wild, because if I was back then in school, I'll be learning this thing because I want to get good grades in my exams. I wouldn't see that, oh, this thing I'm learning can actually help me to be a better person. Let me say, for example, something like English language. My first language, should I say my first language is English now? Because I don't think that English was the first language I spoke. I think the first language I spoke was my mother tongue. So, but anyway, anyways, I come from a bilingual country, so I speak both English and I speak French as well. So let's just say English is my first language to say. But anyways, let's say English is my second language. But when I was in school, I learned, we had like a lesson that was English, actually. That's a subject. So English is the subject. And from nursery school, even primary one, they've been teaching us English, they've been teaching us about punctuations, about obviously like different types of punctuations, how to use exclamation marks, how to use a full stop, how to use a comma, how to use all those things. But maybe to me, I really didn't take it seriously. I didn't take it seriously. But then when I came to myself, like let's say I had to write like a personal statement for uni, or I had to like write some things, and I realized that I didn't know this thing. But I was like, my teacher taught me these things. I knew, like I know that I was taught these things when I was in school, but I didn't take it as seriously because I didn't think that it was important. I didn't think it was that important, so I didn't take it too seriously. But now that I had to do some writing, and I realized that, oh, it was actually important to have learned that, to know when to use a column, know when to use a semicolon, know when to use an exclamation mark, know when to use a full stop, know when to use a comma, know when to use a conjunction. My teacher taught me this. I can't say that I wasn't taught. But I feel like I didn't know what to do with the information I was getting. I didn't know how to interact with it. So I felt like it's just one of those things, like these teachers. I feel like many people like are in this place. So many people are in this place where they just, especially in Africa, like I will quote Africa because that's where I grew up. So I know based on what I've learned that's how it's been. But I believe that at the time before I was about to leaving high school, that chair used to say that they are trying to reintroduce something about the practical based approach, because many times we just get information. And I think that that's one thing actually that we realize, that when you go to school and then you come back, you don't have any like, we don't have experience, you don't know what to do with what you learned in school. So you might have gotten like an accountancy degree, and it doesn't even dawn on you that with this degree I can start an accounting firm, or I can start an accounting company, I can do bookkeeping for people. It doesn't sit on you. The only thing that's at the back of your mind is, I want to get a job. So people go to school because they want to get a job. People go to school because they want to come out and do a 9 to 5. They don't go to school because they're like this. There's no creativity. You don't think that you can actually use this thing that you learned in school to do something better. You don't. I don't know how to really like. It's such a burden in my heart. Sometimes you go online to see how Chinese students are trained, and it's just really different from what we do. I remember when I was in, I don't know what should I say, is it year 12? Not year 12. That's, I don't know what year it is now. I don't know what to call it. Is it year 8? No, year 7. Year 7 or 7th grade. Our teacher had made a statement. He said that if he has his children, none of his children are going to go to grammar school, that all of them are going to go to technical school, because when you go to technical school, when you come out, you have handwork, you're better off than people who go to grammar school. And you know, for somebody like me, I was like, I didn't really understand the gravity of what he has said. But the older that I'm getting, I'm really understanding what it's more beneficial for you to go to technical school. I know I don't know about in other places, but in my country at the time, we used to look at people who go to technical school like people who are not intelligent enough, people who don't have enough sense, or that they just want to go to handwork rather than actually learning like we do, because feel like, oh, we are going to do this, we're going to get that. But I think that the technical exams in my country was probably harder than the grammar exams. But I'm just saying this to say that, like, I have a really big burden. Like, sometimes I look at teenagers, we think about, like, there's no human capital. There's no human, the people are not in a position, like our brains are not developed in a way that we are thinking solution. We are thinking, okay, how can I increase the government capital? How can I become better in setting? What can I do? All what we are thinking from the time we go to school is that I can do a 9 to 5, or I can get a job, which I'm not saying is wrong to desire to get a job. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just trying to say that that should not be the only reason. That should not be the main reason why you want to go to school or why you want to get educated. You get educated so that you can understand more. You should know what to do. You should know how to use that information. You should know how to transfer that same information. This thing that I'm learning now, how can I use it to improve society? How can I use it to improve my life? How can I start up a business with what I'm doing right now? What can I do? Think about I remember when we're teaching us literature. I didn't do arts, but when we're teaching us literature, I think, yes, is it year 8 and year 9 now? 8 and year 9, when we did literature. Like, if I learned enough, I would have come on and be like, oh, I want to write a book. I want to write a story. I want to be a story writer. I want to do fiction stories. But even now, if I Go now, I can say, "Hey, I want to write a fiction story, but do I have enough do I understand literature enough? Do I understand the art of writing? Do I really like, I don't know how, I don't know if you really do understand what I'm saying, but I feel like especially in Africa, there's a need for the education system to be changed. There's a need to teach, should I say teach the people why they're in school. Literally, like from a tender age. One of the things that we should work on, we're talking about ECD, about early brain development, is to get the people to think about, why am I doing this? How is this going to help me? I'm coming to school. Am I coming to school because my parents are there? And obviously going to school and getting educated is actually two different things. Like two different things. Education and indoctrination, two different things. But a very, very subtle line, very, very thin line in between. But I'm going to end here for this video, but I really want to ask you, what do you think about education? What do you think about the education system? What do you think about the way that you were educated? What do you think about going to school? I'd really like to hear your own experiences. If you think, I want to hear your experiences. By the grace of God, I'm going to try to make this as a series, but I'm really expecting and hoping to hear what you think about education. Think about the education system in which you were educated and in which you were brought up. Think about school. Is going to school the same as getting educated? And how do we get people to a place where they are not just going to school to get degrees, but where they can actually become valuable in society? Because going to school doesn't equate value. I'd really like to hear from you in the comment section. May the Lord bless you. See you in the next video.